Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. Now, I have a very interesting guest here, Mr. Ignacio Esteban, former ATF agent and author. He has got a ton of great books that I know our listeners will really enjoy. He's written books on the 1%er biker gangs. He's written books on mafia families. He's written books on prison gangs. Really, right now what's going on, he wrote a book on Putin. He's written one on drug cartels, the evil empire of communist China, plus his own autobiography, ATF Undercover. Please welcome to the show, as we said, Ignacio Esteban. Now, you go by Iggy. That might be a little easier for some people.
Yeah, that's a lot easier, Hollywood Wade.
That's right.
Iggy's fine.
That's right. Well, welcome to Crime and Entertainment, man. We got a lot to unpack here with all this stuff I've just named out, and those are just your books that you've written. I know you got a ton of stories, and we're going to get into that and shoot the breeze on a couple of things. But first things first, man, tell us a little bit about your background, like, where you grew up, that type of thing. I know we spoke on the phone briefly, and you kind of moved around a little bit, so let's give our listeners some insight.
Yeah, no, for sure. I retired recently from ATF last year in June, 26 years of federal law enforcement. And I'd worked in Florida most of my career. In Tampa Field Division I started, and in the Miami Field Division. Before ATF, I was with Customs, and I worked with them for about 5 years at MIA, Miami International Airport. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate enough to make it into the Contraband Enforcement Team, one of the elite teams in Customs. And back then in the 90s, when I was there, it was part of the Treasury Department. Man, and we seized a lot of drugs. I mean, high hand amount of drugs coming in through the airport then. We're talking about hundreds of pounds of cocaine.
Are they just like trying to mail this through, like the mailing system, or how are they trying to transport?
No, this is the major cargo airplanes, commercial airplanes. This is when they were just having huge amount of kilos coming in cargo, and they were getting ripped off when they come in. They had like dirty, like ramp workers and dirty employees working there. So you got to be careful. I mean, those are times where, the 80s was even crazier. But the 90s was as pretty crazy also. It wasn't uncommon to go to a flight and all of a sudden you're looking at the fish or the flowers and you're seeing a ton of kilos coming from Colombia. And there they are. And you see those guys looking over there. They're going to rip that shipment off and take it out the back. And that's how it was at MIA.
Wow.
So, yeah, I did that. I enjoyed that work. It's hard work, to be honest with you, because that was labor intensive. Obviously, being an agent is a little different kind of work. Mm-hmm. But that work was intensive, and especially in the Miami heat. You're also dealing with humidity, a lot of the rain, and then you're dealing with the element there also while you're trying to find these large loads coming into our country from Latin America.
Now, what years was this?
This was from 95 to 2000.
Okay.
And then from 2000 on, then I became, and I really got into law enforcement because my background had studied political science and history. And I was working on my master's at FIU, International Relations. I was going to go to law school. But I saw a recruitment that Customs would look at people who spoke Spanish and understood the Latin American culture. And I started looking into it. I put in for it. Next thing you know, I got picked up, and the rest was history.
Wow.
I became the accidental agent. Maybe that'll be another book of mine down the road.
Yeah, that's a good title for it, Accidental Agent.
Agent, yeah, and it truly was. So after the Customs, then I started dealing a lot with agents. Because once you're seizing a lot, because you're dealing with package processing, you're dealing with, back then it was Customs, and before it went over to DHS. All that time was pre 9/11, and we all worked together and get to meet people from DEA, FBI, ATF, and you start thinking, I want to be an investigator, and I want to take it to the next level, because right now I'm dealing with things at the border, at the airport, and I want to go a higher level. So I put in 4 different spots, and I got picked up by ATF. And I started in Tampa, which was good because I had studied at St. Louis University up there, so I was familiar with the area. And I was still in Florida, which is happy. At least I wasn't sent to somewhere on the border,
yeah.
A border town, which could be rough, extremely rough to work out there, or somewhere else that you want nothing to do with. So I worked with them, and I gradually, and I talk about in my book a lot, how you gradually go into working undercover. I was fortunate enough, I had a lot of people that worked on undercover in my groups. I studied how they worked, and then you develop your own, I would say, style. I also spoke Spanish, which opened the doors a lot for me for meeting different people.
Yeah, I'd imagine probably in Miami too. That helps a lot, I would imagine too.
Oh, Miami's you have to speak Spanish because almost everybody speaks Spanish out there.
Mhm.
It's fully bilingual, and plus you teach in the classrooms, and so many people that come in from all over Latin America that come in there, and especially now, obviously you have Cubans and you have Puerto Ricans, but and now from South America, Venezuelans, obviously after Chavez and everything else, and you have a lot of people that speak Spanish. So it's very helpful to do it, and it came in handy for me with the work, and that's how I got involved more and more with law enforcement. In fact, one of my training officers who will become my partner, he was Puerto Rican, and we had called him the Puerto Rican bullet catcher. Back in the late '80s on Hialeah, I want to say it was the Westland Mall. He was involved in an arrest where, and this is famous. Your viewers or listeners can look this up. The shooting at the Westland Mall where he came to an arrest, and the target opened fire on him, and one of the rounds he had a Sig 9mm, and the partner he had a Sig 9mm, and his round went into his bullet, into his barrel. Like
Wow.
that. So just like that.
That's kind of like the movie Face Off a little bit there. That scene in Face Off where I think their bullets actually hit each other, but
right.
like they were like on the other side of the wall, and both of them come around at the same time and pulled the trigger, and it's like their bullets hit each other.
This one actually went into his barrel.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right there.
Did it stick? Did it blow up? What happened?
He just plugged it in. He kept on pulling the trigger. Nothing was happening. He didn't know what happened.
Oh, wow.
But if I'm not mistaken, the SWAT team behind him, I think, took care of business. So, very lucky. I think Ripley, believe it or not, had a thing about him 1 in a million shot stuff. And so after he retired,
I was about to say the odds on that's got to be very, very slim to next to nothing.
So I knew when I started working with him, I was going to end up, doing good undercover work and learning a lot of stuff, and I did. And I started working a lot of UC work, and I talk about it in the book there, and all different kind of characters dealing with repeat violent offenders, gang members, dealing with drug dealers, and international firearms traffickers, domestic firearms traffickers. So I was fortunate enough. Some people just specialize in a certain group. I was able enough to deal with all kinds of people, all walks of life, all kinds of cases, because I adjusted myself to the occasion and the person. And I kind of plan ahead. How am I going to deal with this person? What works and what doesn't work? Of course, I don't look like this. I think I had a really big beard, and I had long hair to my back, and of course, I don't speak like this. My English was broken, and I don't speak much English. I'm sorry, and I would always talk with an accent, and I'll speak Spanish a lot. So you have to really get into the role and believe what you are. And for me, I was a guy who was buying guns for organized crime.
So let me ask you a question on that. You're doing multiple cases. Like you said, you're working with all these different people. Do you keep the same name or do you change names?
I keep a very generic name.
Okay. So I was about to say, it seems to me that if you keep that name, that would be easier, number one, for you to remember, and then two, to maybe kind of keep relationships with, because one thing I was kind of curious about, because we interviewed another ATF agent on the show. You've heard his story, Jay Dobbins.
Sure.
He done the big case with the Hells Angels. But when you finish up a case and you're ATF agent, if you have to go to trial for that case and they make you, how does that work? Because to me, it would seem like, all right, well, that guy's a cop. Nobody messes with him. Is it like that or is it not? How does that work?
Yeah, most of these guys, to be honest with you, don't read. Don't pay attention. I mean, these kind of guys they're about their own little world, man. They don't have like us, 401ks, pension plans.
Right.
These guys don't listen to the news. These are, you can have a newspaper talk about all these big cases. These guys don't read that. These guys are not into that.
So if you busted like an arms dealer or a group of guys that were selling guns, would you not have to go to trial to testify in that? Or would that be compromising to your cover story?
A lot of times, I'll be honest with you, my case is so strong that, I did go trial a few times because you deal with sometimes stubborn people.
Right.
Most of my cases pled out.
Yeah. Okay.
Most of them. I would say over 90%. I don't think I maybe have I just lost one case in my career because they were that strong. So that's the advantage when you're the undercover and the case agent, because I did both, because ATF is smaller than, let's say, FBI or DA.
Right.
So as ATF, we have 2,700 agents. I think FBI is close to 10,000. I think DEA is about 8,000 agents, right? So we gotta wear multiple hats. So a lot of times I was a case agent, undercover. I did my own property processing, intel workups. So you gotta be multitasking and do everything. You gotta
Right.
do, if not, you don't get the cases where you want to. So, and then you gotta help everybody else with their cases.
Wow,
So
one man wrecking crew here.
that's to say, it's a long days. You get me some long days. So I really enjoy now. Yeah, I have that part there, and I'll talk about some about that. But I really got into writing and getting into these books. AI like politics, and I first started writing more about politics, and then I started realizing I have a nice specialty with organized crime.
Hmm.
And dealing with these groups. A lot of people don't have that information. A lot of people read the books and me, I had no idea. And these aren't long books. If you're saying, listen, I can't read a 300 or 400 page book, I don't have time, whatever. These are short reads. They're about less than 30 pages. Some might be a little longer, but they're informative and I very concise, accurate information that I've researched and looked into. So you have an idea what we're looking at as a country with a lot of these crime syndicates and how they operate. So you can see that, and some of it's my experience and my own personal experience is in the autobiography book, and the other ones are more other agents, and I've researched cases, so you have an idea. So if you're looking into the one percenters, you can see a little more what's going on there. If you're looking into the Cosa Nostra, I give examples there, what cases, what, the crime families in New York City, New Jersey, Buffalo, up in Canada.
Hmm.
Again, but it's not all information. It's just some sort of thing. You get a good feel for it. And then what I like to do when I read something, I like to research it and look more into it. So
Yeah.
hopefully if you like something, you'll keep on looking into it and piques your attention. I think this latest one here with the drug cartels, man, I knew how bad they were. Maybe I really didn't know how bad they were. These are really bad. You can think of the worst movie you ever seen in your life of a horror flick, and these guys are 10 times worse.
Wow.
10 times worse. Things you never thought people would do to each other. These guys will do to you.
And I think me and you spoke on the phone one time. It was almost kind of like, I know people say sometimes cops have quotas, for speeding tickets. If they ain't get wrote enough tickets, they'll go out and they'll bust out a few tickets to fill their quota book. You had a similar experience with doing your research where they hadn't killed quite enough people and they needed
Oh
to
yeah.
add a few bodies to the count to keep their numbers up, so to speak. What tell our viewers
And
about
and
that?
and, and, I, and I also have a book on. I'm glad you brought that up too. L.A. Gang Wars. That's another good one too, which has to do with gangs. So it's not just the cartels, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, it's also and it's also prison gangs. You got prison gangs. And a lot of times the Mexican mafia, these guys run these street gangs from the inside, and they
Hmm.
control them on the outside. A
Yep.
lot of times you see that with the Sureños, 18th Street Gang, 38th Street Gang, and Florencia. There's so many out there, and they all fall under the umbrella of La M, Mexican Mafia,
Hmm.
which means the M in Spanish. And yeah, I think the worst one, and they're all bad. I'm just saying what I've read and researched and what I see is MS-13, La Mara Salvatrucha 13. These guys are just brutal, brutal, brutal. It was so bad that the Trump administration last year and a half with Attorney General Barr decided to deem some of these guys as terrorists
Wow.
because they don't care about the money. They really they're bloodthirsty. They like terrorizing because it enhances their status
Hmm.
in the gang and terrorizes people and scares people. So a lot of times they say, hey, you know what? Like that case out of LA a few years ago, you had these MS-13 guys kidnap these innocent people. They weren't gang related. They took them up to a national park in LA County. Remember the exact name of it. And they took out machetes. They dismembered them, hacked them up, and we're done with them just because they need to show, man, we're a brutal organization. You better fear us. You better fear what we can do to you.
Wow. Yeah, I know that. I
Yeah,
mean, that's the Mexican mob kind of, I guess, maybe work from the inside out, if you will, because they run a lot of the prison gangs like you spoke of. So it's kind of like if you have, any other type of gang and one of your guys goes to prison, I know from what I've heard, kind of how it works is if you don't pay some sort of tax or,
yeah,
protection order or something like that, well, as soon as they hit that yard, they might not make it. That might be the last time they set foot on that yard because you're coming in there with no protection. And if they want to take you out, they'll take you out.
yeah. No, you got to pay protection.
I
You got
mean,
to
I
pay
think it's,
protection.
and I don't know this to be fact. It's been, some people said it was true. Some people said it wasn't. But from things that I've researched, there's rumors that John Gotti had to pay protection. I guess that would have been in Marion, because that's where he's at, Marion, Illinois, to the Aryan Brotherhood in there. And they actually held off protection one time. And that's that picture of Gotti where he's gotten beat up in there. He got beat up in jail. Now, some people said that fight was with a regular inmate and it was over a television, and Gotti changed the television. It was the end of the fight. And, you know, this was what it was. But there was a lot of rumors that Gotti was paying the AB for protection inside. And then when he stopped, they let that happen.
Yeah, no, you have to. And a lot of groups are very protective of other groups. So, you know, if you're part of that group, or even from the outside, if you're in that certain territory and you have a business, they come knocking, you got to pay. If not, they burn your business, or they do worse. Extortion is a big problem. It's a big money for these guys.
Oh yeah, yeah. Extortion's huge for you know, all the drug crime syndicates and, you know, the mob and everything. Now down in Florida, when you're talking about the 1%ers, you probably dealt a lot with what, the outlaws down there.
I had a few cases there, not you know, small ones, but I did do some good research, and I did obviously see a lot of ATF guys have been able to infiltrate these groups in the past. Obviously, I think we talked about Jay Dobbins with the Hells Angels, Billy Queen with the Outlaws, but after the case with the Mongols,
yeah, Billy Queen was with the Mongols. I think he entered.
And after that one, years later, 4 ATF agents infiltrated the Mongols and took down the president, Doc Cavazos.
Ruben Doc Cavazos. Yeah. See, after, and I think my timeline's right on this because I've read Under the Loan. I think when that happened, when they pulled everybody, you know, or when they pulled him and they arrested everybody, I think Doc took over after that, I believe. And then the numbers were really down. So Doc kind of threw that probationary period, prospect period to the side, and was hiring guys that weren't even really like true bikers. They were pretty much gang members to beef the numbers up.
Yeah. Well, you bring in gangsters, that's what you become.
Yeah.
Okay. Thugs on wheels.
Yeah. And then they actually wound up getting him later on. Is that right, Ruben, Doc?
Yeah. Yeah. He's doing some serious federal time, and it was so bad, the membership voted him out of the club.
So he's out.
Supposedly, you never know how that's going to work out, right?
I know his son was in it too. His son's name was Ruben also. I think he called him Little Rube. I actually have his book.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Look over here. I don't know if you can see it. But that's his book. Obviously, this was when he was not locked up, but it's Honor Few, Fear None, The Life and Times of a Mongol. You know, so I read that and I knew his son was in it, Little Rube, like we said. So I'm not sure what his standing is with the club. It's been a while since I've read that book. Another one, I know we had talked about the Outlaws. I remember seeing, I think it was on Gangland. They actually had a whole damn chapter of undercover cops down there, because it was kind of like in their heat of rivalry with the Warlocks down there. Okay, I'm sorry. It was the Warlocks. They had the whole chapter of undercover cops. They had their heated rivalry with the Outlaws at the time, and they hired this one guy. He wanted to beef up the numbers, similar to kind of like Doc, but at least these guys were pretending to be bikers, and they had a whole damn chapter of undercover cops. And when one of the, I don't know if he was a president or just a high-ranking member, he was shot in his garage. I want to say his name was Bear Chapin, but I'm not 100%. But they decided to arrest the Warlocks after the funeral. And it was kind of ingenious, because when they had the funeral, they were lined up almost kind of like they're directing traffic, like, you know, okay, going down. And then all of a sudden, bam, they got them all pulled over and they're on their, you know, on the face, you know, cuffing everybody up. So it was kind of ingenious the way they did that, because they knew everybody was going to come to the funeral out of show of respect. And they knew that also the tensions at that time were all-time high. They were about to get really, really crazy down there in the streets. Were you around any of that time? I'm not sure. That might've been before you got down there.
Yeah, that was before my time. That happened in the early 90s, and I didn't get with ATF until 2000. But I did see that same documentary I think you're talking about. I saw the same video, and I did meet some of the guys later who had done some of those cases. So
okay,
and you get to hear their perspective of these guys. You don't hear, I mean, I guess the warlocks are out there, but I'm not sure how bad they are now compared to what they used to be. And I still think Florida and all these states are mostly probably still outlaw states.
Yeah, there was I grew up in a town called Darlington, and it's really known for like their NASCAR racetrack and not a lot else. And we were at a club one night in Florence, and a friend of mine was getting into it, and I seen the guy had a cut on. And at that time, History Channel and everything, these ganglands were just starting to roll out. And I had never heard of the Warlocks. You know, obviously I've heard of, you know, some of the more popular ones, the Pagans, the Hells Angels, the Mongols. So I never really knew, I never knew what the Warlocks was. It was the first time I'd ever seen that cut in the area. Well, long story short, everything got kind of squashed, and, you know, everybody drank beers and had a good time for the rest of the night. Well, like fast forward about 2 months later, I'm sitting at home and I'm watching that documentary, and I'm seeing the name of this gang, and I'm like, holy cow. So I picked up the phone and called my buddy. I'm like, hey, you need to turn on the History Channel real quick. And he's like, is that the people that we were about to lose? I was like, oh yeah, it's a good thing everything kind of went good that night, because that would have not been the correct people to make enemies with, from what I was.
No, you don't want problems with these 1%ers, man. They're no good, man. They're organized crime. Man, Department of Justice has deemed them as organized crime, a criminal enterprise.
Well, I mean, a lot of times too, I've heard people that, you know, was involved with the mob in La Cosa Nostra. A lot of times they would hire out them to do, you know, their dirty work and stuff like that for them. You know, a lot of guys I know that I've heard stories from that were bookies, and if they needed collecting, you know, there's nothing more that'll make you want to pay a debt more than, you know, 15, 20 guys on Harley show up and knock on your door and, you know, give you a deadline. You're probably going to do whatever you can to come up with that cash.
For sure. You don't want that kind of problem. And I put all those examples in the books and detailed cases about, and not just ATF infiltrate, you know, the Mongols and Hells Angels, but the Pagans also, the outlaws, all the Sons of Silence, all the big names, all the big names.
Banditos is another big one.
I think, in my opinion, looking at all the research I've been doing and my personal experience, you've seen the Cosa Nostra and the 1%ers. I think, based on the big cases, they got hit hard. Law enforcement with racketeering cases, RICO cases, have devastated these two. They haven't done as well, but yet, and I'm watching the cartels and the street gangs, they get hit hard, but they're flourishing.
Yeah.
And they still keep on coming. And no matter how big the cases are, these guys just keep on churning these people out, and they just keep on coming. These soldiers come in and they do as they're told, commanded, and they come. So I see we're hitting the mafia pretty hard. They're pretty much, I think even the Buffalo News even said about the mafia, is it dead? Because the commission has been pretty much done. That the mob bosses would meet together. It's not what it used to be. Like, I think I put in my book, if you're a mob boss, you're going to end up two things: either shot by your own, or you're going to end up doing federal time and doing a long time.
Yeah.
You know, most of these guys are doing long federal. They get hit by, you know, RICO charges, and they're gone for a long time. So, and all these guys are rolling on each other. It's amazing. I put in the book how many of these guys are cooperating. The same thing of oath of silence. No, these guys are rolling.
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, that might have been a little bit more prevalent, you know, the omerta, but nowadays, man, and it seemed like, I know, and I've talked about this in other interviews, but Robert Valachi was one of the first ones that rolled. And there's a famous like clip of him saying how things work, showing the hierarchy of the mob from, you know, boss to underboss, consigliere to capos on down. And, you know, he was probably, like, I'm sure there's other people, he was probably one of the biggest ones originally, but then when Sammy rolled, that started like a snowball, because I think he killed like 14, 15 people. And they basically, I mean, he had to do a little bit of time, but he basically got a slap on the wrist for killing all those people, all because they wanted to get John and put John away. And so basically what that was, you know, as long as you can give up somebody bigger than yourself, we really don't give a damn what you did.
Yeah. You have to come clean.
Yeah.
You got to come clean. You got to be truthful. You got to be able to use your information. I've been in a lot of those proffer sessions, and if you come clean and you admit everything, then they can start working with you.
Right.
If you don't, if you hold back and you're lying, then it's going to bite you in the ass, and you're not going to be able to do much. So you got to be able to come clean.
Yeah, I think the guy we had spoke about on the phone, and it kind of works into what you were saying earlier. His name was Anthony Gaspipe Casso. And he kind of done what you were talking about. He knew that being at the top was probably not the best place to be, even though ultimately, I guess that was some people's goals, but that probably wasn't where you wanted to be, because all the spotlight's on you, all the heat's on you. And he would kind of, make not make, but, just kind of like, oh, well, you just take this role, even though he was still kind of running things, just to not be in that spotlight. And ultimately, I think he got, locked up. And I think that was the situation where he told some stuff, but then he omitted some stuff. So basically, it just kind of, like you said, bit him in the ass.
Yeah, no, you're done. Yeah, if you're not truthful, and it's hard for these guys because these guys are, thieves or liars or murderers, and all of a sudden you say you got to become clean and tells everything. That's not comes natural to them. They're just like, no, I like to hold stuff back.
Yeah. What kind
Ain't
of
gonna
mob
happen, man.
guys did you deal with down there in Florida, or was there many? I know they have, some factions in there back in the day. Santo Trafficante used
That
to
was
operate a
back
lot
in
out of Florida.
the Trafficante family, I guess.
Yeah.
All my research again, this is more done with the research because you come across, not so much. You hear about this person, that person, and stuff like that, but it's not like in New York or in the Northeast like that. It's I think in Florida, it's you see these cartels, man, they're bad, dude. They're bad, 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 and they come in, they take over, and they have hubs like the Sinaloa. They've got hubs in cities in America, and they got people working already in the United States. So they're not just in Mexico. And no, they got people in here. And I talk about some of those cases. No, they got people, they've arrested big cases with a lot of people in the United States already. They've taken down. So a lot of people think, oh, well, we're safe right here. It's just a matter of time before they know that if they pick up the violence in America, there's consequences.
Right.
They
Yeah,
can do whatever they want down
that was
south.
kind of like what set him off to go get Pablo Escobar, was when he took down that plane that had some people from the United States on it. That was when they were kind of like fed up and was like, all right, you know what? We're coming over there to take care of business. And that
Well,
was kind of the beginning of his end over there.
yeah, he had done it. And you know what now? I talk about in the book there, the Mexicans, the cartels are now running operations out there.
Wow.
The Colombians factions are helping them, and they're paying for production and distribution. They got like 95% control. They definitely are cartel, monopoly of cocaine, heroin, and they're growing their own heroin now in Mexico. They've been doing it for years. So they really have, well, and they're even though Escobar and them were violent, no, I see these guys even more violent. More and that's the three. I think the three. There's other ones, but the three biggest violent factions: Sinaloa, obviously Chapo. We talked about him.
Right.
Now he's a supermax in Colorado, Florence, Colorado. They try to go after his brother, his family, but there's always someone else stepping up.
Yeah.
It's too much money.
When you take one of these guys down, that's the thing is, you can be like, oh, we finally got, Chapo or whatever, which it took him a couple of times to get him with all of his escapes and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's gonna be somebody to take their spot. I mean, that's too big of a, cash cow for people not to take.
You know how much they're estimating? The Mexican government, the U.S. government estimates these crime syndicates are making anywhere between 12-15 billion dollars a year.
Oh my.
Each one of these. So no wonder why they're fighting. That's why they buy everybody. When they got that kind of money, they buy the police. They buy everybody, and they become now everything. They run everybody. And if you cross us, and the new kid in the block who used to have an alliance with Sinaloa, which is the Jalisco cartel, which is CJNG, which is Cartel Jalisco New Generation, Nueva Generación, those guys are going to war. And that's why you see them going to war with them, and it is bad. And these guys are so brutal that they come in and they're making billions of dollars. These guys are a major enterprise. They're making billions. They've got the firepower that's coming from the United States that's coming, loading them in. And they go to a police precinct and they'll light it up, kidnap guys, kill them, and set an example with their bodies hanging, their heads, cut off and everything else, saying, we're running this town. What are you going to do about it?
Wow.
That's how those guys roll. You're talking about Escobar bringing out the plane. This is a story I talk about in the book, and this was a Sinaloa faction that was going against another rival in the Sonora region, which all these regions are really bad. And this was a family, and they were Mormons, right? Mormon family, 3 mothers with their kids. They're not cartel related. They're not gang related. They happen to be caught in the wrong place at the wrong time in a crossfire situation between these gangs. And they're caravanning to go back to the U.S. from near, I think they're from Chihuahua, Mexico, to meet back with family, right? And this is what tells you you're in the wrong place. They don't care if you're American or not. They'll light you up. And this is a big story in 2019 when this happened. One of the mothers comes out of her car, 3 cars. She goes in and try to explain to me, wave it, hey, listen, we're not cartel. They take her out, light her up, and light her kids up in her car. Boom, done. They go to the second car, do the same thing with another mother with her 2 sons, light them up, and then go right to the third car, which was another mother in there with her 4 children. They light that car up, it becomes a blaze of fire, and they burn her alive inside the car.
Oh,
these are innocent women and children. They don't care.
Damn, if I'm that third car, I got to believe at that point, if I don't watch them other 2 get taken out, I'm fixing to at least try to run over 1 or 2 of them.
You got to think about these guys are so heavily firepowered, and these are women, and I mean, of course, but they're not trained for anything like this.
Yeah,
it's like your world, and they're Mormon, very religious people,
right?
And all of a sudden, you counter these savages, these monsters, which are they don't care. They have no soul. They have no soul at all. Talking about the Jalisco. So my point was, they do all that to these people, and they're still going hard and strong.
That's why
they got that kind of control.
Some of the people I interview, we interviewed a guy named Johnny Curry who went over to Colombia. He was a big drug dealer out of Detroit. He went over there to get a plug. I wasn't able to interview George before he passed away, but George Young, went over there to Mexico and, got a plug. A lot of people, go over there with really no backing and no kind of direction of who to go talk to or whatever, kind of just on a whim looking for somebody to talk to. I'm like, that takes balls, because if they don't like, maybe the way you come across or the way you look, or if they think, something's not right, it's not nothing for them to kill you.
You get taken into one of their special kitchens, and you don't come out of those special kitchens.
Yeah.
You get taken that's I mean, you're getting chopped up in pieces and you're not coming out.
That takes balls to go over there and try to make those connections. Now, if you go out there and it works out, you got a direct plug, to Columbia, then yeah, your business is going to boom for a little while until you eventually get caught like everybody does. But yeah, that's a big risk right there going over there. Cause I mean, you go over there and they take, like you said, they take you out. Nobody's going to know where the hell you are.
No, they're going to find you. They've gotten very good. And here's another case, another example. I'm not going to tell all the stories, but I got some real good ones here. And these guys weren't even big name, but they're big enough. It's the Guerreros Unidos cartel, GU, and the city of Guerreros. And this shows how corrupt the whole situation was. There's these college kids who are going down to protest Mexico City. They had commandeered one of the local buses from the city out there, right, near that town. They go down, they come back. The mayor pissed. You got the chief police upset. He said, take those guys and get rid of them. Comes from the mayor. This is what Mexican authorities have proved now. So after they interrogate him and they start getting pissed off, the mayor tells them, allegedly, according to reports and everything else, turn them over to the cartel. So these kids get turned over, and according to reports, Mexican authorities, they're dismembered. They pour acid on them. They burn them alive, and they disappear. So you say they don't find anything. It's a big thing out there. It's the college kids of 43, and for years. And I know the current Mexican administration has opened a big investigation to make people accountable for those atrocious acts.
Now, where is it? Where was this at? Where did this take place?
Near Guerreros.
Now, was that Mexico or?
Mexico, yeah, city of Mexico.
Wow. Holy shoot. Jeez.
And allegedly the cartel that was involved is Guerreros Unidos, United Guerreros. So it's a bad place. I don't think people realize how bad it is. And I could keep on telling you stories which are shocking, which I was reading into it. They found out in a little town right across from Eagle Pass. I think it's called Allende. The town's called Allende. And the cartels there, I say it was from the Zetas. Maybe a mistake on that one. I have double checks in the book who was involved. But the massacre was so unreal because allegedly an informant from the DEA came out from there. And I guess the DEA has shared information. They thought a team that was vetted from Mexico, they found out the guy was dirty. He leaked that information to the Zetas, said, hey, this guy came from this village, from this town. Well, those guys came in there, lights out, and took out over like 300 some people, gangster style.
Wow.
And that's right across from Eagle, right. Mm-hmm. So
That's
That's why I look at some, and I look at these guys, and then I look at the, like you said, with the mafia and the 1%ers. Yeah, they have their, but these guys are brutal, man.
That's what
For
I was
example,
about to say. That was exactly what I was about to say. I mean, yeah, you got the mob does their hits, and the 1%ers
yeah,
do their hits and things like that. Just they look at it more, at least the mob, as it's almost a business decision. This guy had to go for this reason. It was for the sake of the business.
sure.
It, and I'm not downplaying that. It's still a loss of life. It's still a murder, right out in the middle of the street. But it's still very tame compared to the stories you've just kind of, let our listeners into of things you
It's,
researched there. That's a little bit on the tame side.
yeah, these guys is nothing. I think, in looking at the stories you see from terrorists, Al Qaeda, ISIS, these guys in some ways are worse in many ways because they're right next to us. They're right on the border. They function here, and they don't care who you are. You come across, and they're having a day where they say, you know what, we need some body counts to terrorize people. You're in the wrong area. You better fight for your life because it's not going to be a good situation for you. And once they get a hold of you, it's bad news. It's bad news. Yeah, they call those sites, the Zetas are known for, and that used to be part of the Gulf Cartel. They were a paramilitary group and they've splintered out a lot, but they want to be known as a brutal group, worse than anyone else. So these guys, just because they can, you got a major highway that runs up and down, they would commandeer a commercial bus, kidnap everybody in that commercial bus, take him back to the ranch, and start doing House of Horrors on everybody on that bus because they can.
Oh,
And what they did, according to reports when I read, was they will start like from the Coliseum. Remember the days like Coliseum, people have to fight.
yeah.
You say, I'm going to give you a hammer and I'm going to give you a club. You guys kill each other, and the winner gets to move on to the next round. That's
Wow.
what kind of things, sadistic things they would do to these people. And these were innocent people who just they just happened to be in a bus trying to go from point A to point B, and all of a sudden your bus gets commandeered by these guys, and where you're going. Sometimes they would cook people alive in those pits. They would do acid drops in your face. Yeah,
So
they're
essentially,
bad
they're
people.
turning people into killers to try to survive.
And allegedly, what was said there is the person who survived at the end, after if he killed like 10, 15 people, he said, okay, this guy knows how to kill. He
Right.
survived. We're going to offer a position as a Sicario because he's already killed a lot. Hey, you already killed a lot for us already, man. You might as well join us and become that. So
Yeah,
you're
you
an
got,
average Joe one day,
you got 10,
and now
15
you're a
hits under your
Sicario.
belt. You give them a job.
Now he said, oh, you can kill with your bare hands. You can kill with a club, a hammer. You know what? Now you can be one of us. That's unreal.
Yeah, and I got a feeling if you turn that job down, you're not going to be
Yeah.
around very long to try to put in another application down the road. That's going to be probably the end
No,
of the story.
you'll be in the cooking pit next, if that's it. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
that
I think
sounds
people.
like a damn movie right there. That's got to be a movie. I'm sure there's probably something already around that I'm not thinking of, but that's got to be a movie.
Well, I remember. I don't know if you remember Sicario.
Yeah, with Benicio del Toro.
The Toro and with some and also some other big name actors in there. What's her name? She played FBI agent. Emily Blunt is her name,
Yep.
and also another famous character. He's been in a lot of movies, and he played also another. I want to say he was also an FBI agent. And it's kind of based on true events, and they kind of showed how dark it was on the other side.
Yeah.
And like one of the famous lines here in Sicario is when they're looking over and hearing all the shooting. They're on the border town, and it's just dark, and they go, man, that's a really dark place. And I can't tell readers or viewers how dark it is over there when the police are with them, the mayor is with them, the governors are with them, and you're somebody they want to get rid of. You have no help. I mean, the Zetas, like I said, when they want to make a name for themselves, or Jalisco, when they go in the precinct, they say, okay, we want, and they go inside, give me the list of all your officers. This is another thing, where they live, and we're gonna pay them a visit. And it's not uncommon for them to start, once they get the addresses, to go out there and they kidnap your whole family, right? And the officers end up being dismembered and everything else. And they leave signs on. It says, this is what happens when you try to enforce the law here. See, Jalisco, CJNG.
And
It's only
so at
Spanish.
that point, I got to believe that if you're a cop, you're definitely on the take and you're essentially working for them, even though you might be a cop, because why the hell would you not be? I mean,
You try to do the right thing, it's going to end up in a bad, not only for you.
yeah, your
Allegedly,
family.
allegedly the mafia had that rule, and maybe you know more than I do, that you don't touch people's families, right?
Yes, that was a code that they tried to go by, that families were kind of off limits. Even if they
Off
had a
limits.
problem with you,
Right.
you didn't have to worry about them taking out your mom, or, if you were with your wife or something like that, they
Your
pretty much
children.
tried to stick
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And your children, they pretty much tried to stick it with you. Now, there's probably been some rare cases where some brothers may have been taken out, but they were both involved in the life. So in that case, it was kind of, wasn't really a breaking the rules. I know, if you ever seen the movie Casino,
Yeah.
Joe Pesci played Tony Spilotro. Well, in real life, him and his brother Michael, they got killed in the movie, and they did both get killed. It wasn't quite like it was in the movie. I actually done a story with a guy named Red Wimet, who was a mob associate out of Chicago, and he kind of broke down how that really went down. They were actually killed in a basement at a house. They were beat to death. They beat his brother first, and then they gave Tony, he asked for an opportunity to pray before they finished it, and he did. And then they beat him to death, and then they went and dumped him in that cornfield in Indiana.
Here's another shocking. So that's what the mafia does. This is what the cartel does. So very different. They not only want to take, remember they wanted the massacre I told you, to punish anybody else. It was to punish anybody who knew him and was associated with this guy. If you knew him, oh, he knew him. Go in the house and kill everybody in there. And they go right now. They massacred, and allegedly, what I heard, the mayor of the city was watching the whole thing going down.
Wow.
Of that small town. Yeah.
Well, that kind of brings me back, I guess, to your profession, if you will, the ATF undercover. I mean, it makes it so hard for successful operations because, like, well, number one, I don't even think I would have the balls to even attempt to try to go into a Mexican cartel. But even with the, La Cosa Nostra or the one percenters have that prospecting phase, kind of like we talked about earlier. So you're going to go through at least a year in most cases, and probably longer. That's years, like best case scenario. You're top of the line, top guy. They know you're ready to work, ready to earn, whatever the case may be. You get it a year. Most, it's more than that. Kind of the same deal with the mob, and they only, will make you when the books are open. So that's only certain sets of time. So an extensive period of time has got to go by for you to reach that ultimate goal where, I don't know who's funding these operations, but that's a long time. It's not like you can do this for a month or two and it's okay, we got everything we need. It doesn't work like that. So that's kind of the bad thing for you guys, but the good thing for them is because they make it so hard and so strenuous that it's going to take a long time to get to that point to where you're really truly in that inner circle to do all that. What, in your opinion, in cases that you've worked and stories that you've heard and your own personal experiences, who was probably the toughest to infiltrate? Obviously, we know that the biker gangs have been infiltrated a few times, more than once. The mob has also with Donnie Brasco, and I think you spoke about another one. Who would you probably say is the hardest to infiltrate?
Yeah. I think I did mention that. It was in Canada. They had an infiltration there with the Canadian mafia there, which was authorities there, and he even rose all the way, I think, to like second command. So it does happen a lot. So, I would have to say it's just very difficult with the cartels. Very difficult the way they are set up in Mexico. If you, especially the way with this current administration, Lopez Obrador, he is the current president of Mexico. He has taken a different tone with the cartels. They call it hugs for thugs. He is pretty much going hands off. He doesn't want the wars that's happened before. Right. He pretty much says, you know what? But it's not really working because the violence is still there. It is still there. And if you're not, and I keep on saying they should be deemed a terrorist organization because they're so brutal, and you need to take on military tactics because you go in there regular, they're being bought out. These guys have billions. You got Caesar assets. You got to go after them. You got to use drones, just like you do with Al Qaeda. You have to do it with ISIS. You got to do it with these guys. In my opinion, that's how bad they have gotten. The situation is so bad there, and this president really has taken a hands-off, fair attitude with them. That's just, it's going to be so, it really impacts us. The stronger they get, the more it comes over to us. And they're here. And they're here a lot, and they're going to spread.
And like you said, it's nothing for those guys to, like you said, just mow down a family, a woman full of kids and stuff like that. You're not going to be.
That's if you're lucky.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. That's if you're lucky. Wait.
Do that quite as maybe often, or if at all. I probably should say not at all. And I don't think either 1% gang or La Cosa Nostra, those kind of things just don't happen like that. You're not going to do that type of thing. So I'm not saying that you would never get asked to carry out some sort of hit like that. I'm sure it happens. Like we said, those guys do, put in hits and, put contracts out on people, but you would at least have a while to go, I think, before they would even want to trust you with doing something like that. To me, that's all the cartels. That's almost like kind of your introduction. All right. Well, like you said, we need to see if you can kill, right off the bat. So I would definitely.
No, right off the bat, you've got to kill right off the bat. You got to kill right off the bat with these guys. You can't be part of them unless you're not a killer. You have to be a killer. And they're recruiting on the border, a lot of American kids who really come from broken homes. They end up getting recruited over because they can go back and forth. They got dual citizenship, and they get recruited. There's stories about them becoming sicarios early, 14-year-old hitmen already. They get the taste, the bloodthirsty, they get the taste. One of the most famous hitmen, sicario, which just, I think, a couple of years ago, it was in my book, was sentenced, I want to say, to 7 years consecutive life, which in a federal prison, a U.S. federal prison, but he killed so many. I think his hit count was over 40 something. And one of the stories they talk about in the hearing, in the sentencing hearing, which I read, it is really shocking. And I think it just gives you more ideas how shocking and how much they enjoy killing. They really, I think these guys really enjoy it. These guys are a psychopath, a serial path. I mean, they're crazy. One of the guys that crossed them, they go into the family house again, but he doesn't shoot them. No. He's more sadistic than that. He brings out the axe, right? He brings the daughter in front of the father. They're tied up with the mother, and starts dismembering the daughter in front of the dad and the mother. He said, "Oh, you're going to remember me now, aren't you? You're going to remember me now, what I'm doing here, aren't you?" And then he brings the wife, does the same thing to her in front of him, and then kills him. That's that kind of people there.
Oh shit!
Yeah, that's the kind of monsters you're dealing with down south.
Yeah, I don't. I don't think the La Cosa Nostra and the 1%ers are going to.
I don't think they take access to kids, to little kids, and dismember them in front of them. They don't do that. It's just, or they pour acid, dissolving acid on the faces. They like to do that too, or they put gasoline on you and light you on fire. They like to do that stuff too. I mean, these people are really bad news. I just, the more you look into it, man, we have to be more. And unfortunately, this administration, it was so messed up. Because I almost went to Mexico to work out there with an international program with ATF. And I started talking to a lot of people, and I saw what was going on with his administration. And I didn't like what I was seeing. In fact, federal agents, U.S. agents, don't have diplomatic immunity anymore. Oh. He stripped us of diplomatic immunity, which is another reason not to go out there.
We might not be having this interview.
No, probably. And it's not uncommon, especially for Jalisco cartel, new generation. Those guys, man, they don't care who you are. When one of the stories out there was the chief of police from Mexico City, they opened up in his house.
On the chief of police?
They don't care. And the ambassador was 2 homes over, the U.S. ambassador to Mexico. So how are we going to be safe out there? And they don't give you real firepower. So it's not worth going out there. We've lost agents there a lot. I don't know if you know that. In Mexico, federal agents have been killed out there.
I can imagine. Jeez. Yeah, I wouldn't there. Yeah, they wouldn't be sending me over there. I'd be putting in my 2 weeks or something if I got sent over there.
And if you do go, you don't take your family.
Absolutely not. That's just, that's begging to be putting them in harm's way, because eventually it's going to get there.
Yeah. And then you have to live with that if something happens to them. And then it's like, man, I got there because of that. And then you got to live with that stuff. So unless Mexico really goes, and it has to change its attitude and go to war with and I put in the book what the solution is, what I think should happen. And they don't do it. They just get more emboldened. And these problems with more illegals, more crime, more drugs. And it's going now, obviously we have to deal with our addiction problem in America. Right. People have addiction problems because if people didn't have addictions to drugs, all these drugs wouldn't go here, right? They'll be out of business. If the U.S. didn't consume it in the world, not just the U.S., the world, then these guys will be out of business and they'll be doing something else. Who knows what they'll be working?
Yeah.
But it's a combination of helping people overcome their addiction, which they need help. We have to spell that, but we also have to beef. In my opinion, we need to beef up the border, and really make it impossible for these guys to come in here and make operations, because if future generations, it's just going to get worse, man. And I said in my book, I see Mexico become very similar to Somalia. We have the warlords taking over the regions.
Mm-hmm.
You have the drug lords running the region, and the government, I think, is irrelevant. And
so, I mean, you mentioned the borders. A lot was said, when Trump was running for president, that was one of his key, fighting factors. Was he wanted to build a wall and control the borders. And it's not just Trump that said that. Trump rubbed a lot of people the wrong way by the way he, worded things. He wasn't very PC. He was very brash, but he's always been like that. So I don't know why people really expected anything different when he started running for president. He had always been a shit talker. He had always been a guy that just let it go and said what he thought. But there was a video I seen where every president was saying pretty much the same thing. It was Bill Clinton saying that we needed to control our borders and, keep out illegal people and keep out illegal immigrants to, that are taking jobs and things like that. Then there was one where George Bush was saying the same thing. And then another one where Barack Obama was saying the same thing. So this message that he was trying to do, it wasn't something new. It wasn't like he just pulled it out of the air and was saying, oh, well, we'll go over here and just focus all energy on the borders. It was already a problem. It was noticed by other presidents. Do you feel like that he kind of put the right things in motion? And then how do you feel about the current administration, what they're doing to go again? Do you think it's kind of just maybe backtracked everything that he done?
I think they should finish the wall. No doubt. They need to protect the border. You have to protect us. I mean, you guys see what's going on out there, and you need to put 21st century technology with that.
Right.
Yeah. You need the drones. Yeah. You need video. You need the because they have a lot of tunnels. People don't realize they're very creative.
Yeah.
Elaborate underground tunnels into our country.
Well, I mean, wasn't that how they got out Chapo? Didn't they dig a whole damn tunnel to
but smugglers, they got smugglers that use tunnels all the time. So you have to have the technology to find these tunnels. You got to work on a lot of things to keep that going. And of course, you have guys that do it other ways, but that's just, if you have a property, don't you have a fence around your house?
Mm-hmm.
We all have fence around our house, right?
Right.
Keep people out, keep things out, right? I think you got to do the same thing with our country. You got to protect it because it's so bad. Unfortunately, Mexico was not the Mexico of the 70s, which remember the 80s. When they became full-fledged and the Colombian cartels collapsed, Mexico took it to that next level. They've taken over operations in Colombia. They've taken over operations, obviously, in Mexico, but they're it for distribution of cocaine, top producer of heroin. It's coming in here. The pills, everything. It's coming in. And unfortunately, they do get a lot of their guns. I'll be remiss as an ATF agent. A lot of guns do come from the U.S. They do like our rifles, our handguns. They're made here. And there's a lot of smuggling. The same operation are set up here. They're also smuggling the guns down south with their money, because obviously they got to get the money back out, and they got to get the guns out too, so they can terrorize the people and communities and stuff.
Right.
I think most ATF agents I've dealt with are very pro Second Amendment. We all believe in defending our family, fighting for our country. But the wrong kind of people, felons, bad dudes, they need to do time.
Right.
And they do violent crimes. And I put a lot of those bad people away, who were repeat violent offenders, gang members, drug people who endanger the public. And all these guys are armed. I always say bad guys who always in the black market have guns.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah. I mean,
you got to protect yourself.
A lot is about, a lot is being talked about, with Biden trying to do the guns and things. If you took away, America's right to buy guns, the only people who are going to have guns at that point in time are the bad people, because they don't give a shit about the laws in the first place. I mean, like, if the bad guys have guns and they're doing bad shit, do you think just because, any president, Trump, Biden, Obama, Clinton, Bush, I mean, anybody says, all right, you can't have those, you think you're just going to give them away or give them up? All right. No. Hell no, it's not going to happen.
Look at Mexico and see what happens. They get more powerful and the people are weaker. They have some strict gun laws, are ridiculous, and it only impacts the poor, innocent people, and the criminals thrive on that.
Yeah.
Because most likely they come to your house, you're not gonna
They
have
know
anything.
they know you're not going to have anything. So they got free
Yeah.
will to come in and do whatever the hell they want.
No, it's horrible, man. Horrible, horrible. So that's why I said, yeah. And that's one thing we can do maybe is try to hit these guys who are trafficking guns. And that's a book I'm actually working on now. International firearms trafficking. I'm not sure I want to call it yet. Either international gun running, and I'm talking about all the regions. How unfortunately America is like the source of guns for the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
People love American guns. I mean, yeah. And not only do we have American guns, we also import a lot too.
Right.
So you can come in here and you can get a nice selection. And Canadians love our guns. They're smuggling all the time out there. Mexicans, Central Americans, South Americans, Europeans, and sometimes they know it's hard to get this is some of the case I talk in my book. They go with firearm parts, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes easier to break it down, right? Or 80%ers, right? Technically, it's not even a firearm part, and then you drill it and assemble it over there. And that's what. There's one dude. This guy's a piece of work, man. He was working for the cartel, the brutal one, Jalisco, the CGNG. He's an American from Oklahoma. They set him up shop in Nuevo Laredo, right? And his job is to assemble everything, all the parts, 80%ers. Hey, we'll set you a nice little shop here. You just set up our guns for us. So we're all set. So in Laredo, they order the parts, they smuggle them in over here, and he would just be working on that for them. And knowing that this guy's killing cops and everything else.
Wow.
Imagine working for those dudes.
There's tons of movies about that, like, Lord of War with Nicolas Cage, and I think War Dogs that they have. Like you said, our guns are very popular. I mean, that's a big business that a lot of people don't know about. I mean, you think, the drug dealings and the drug cartels and all this, guns are a huge part in that
huge
probably goes up under the radar most of the time. Like I said, there's a few movies that touched on it, but that's a big business that a lot of people don't correlate with, all that other stuff that's going on.
What's that famous line? I think you talk about Lord of the, what was it? The Lord of the Warlords. What is it?
Lord of War with Nicolas Cage.
Lord of War with Nicolas Cage, right?
Yeah.
What's the famous line when he talking to one of the guys? He's playing an ATF agent. And he goes, "I'm with ATF. I'm not here to talk about the alcohol or tobacco. So I guess you're talking about the firearms." Yeah, it is. And now they're getting so much better at it with these ghost guns. You probably heard about that, right? Ghost guns.
Yes. Yeah.
They don't have any serial numbers.
Yeah.
You just put it all. You pretty much put it all together, and you drill everything out, and there you go.
Yeah, there's no traceability to it or nothing like that, and that's just. I mean, for people that don't know,
the cartels love that.
Yeah.
Cartels love that.
Because for people that don't know, even if you have a gun, there is still, a traceability factor of at least you can start to try to find out where it come from. Sure. But with that, you got nothing.
Nothing. And they love that.
I bet they're chomping at the bit.
That, and you can do that with all your weapons.
Wow.
All your weapons. And they don't only just like rifles and handguns. They also like the big boy guns too. I mean, they like the Barretts, the 50 cal Barretts.
Yeah.
That's very popular down south. I mean, those are war guns because they like to tear up the military and police. Remember, they're at war pretty much, and they're going toe to toe with law enforcement and military.
Yeah, and other rival gangs and stuff like that. I mean, that's just
tough. No, I think your listeners, your audience here would really appreciate, especially if you don't know much about it. It's a good way to introduce yourself to these groups, and it's an introductory, like my books are, and then you go farther into it. And you have an idea how violent. I don't think the average person talking to people really, but have any idea how really violent these guys are, and how bad.
Oh no, I don't think so either. A lot of people, take what they see on a TV show or on a movie, and they automatically think that's the way it really happened. They think that's the way it is. And that's not always the case. Like we talked about earlier, things are, especially in the movies, things are glamorized. So documentaries, you're probably going to get more truth than a movie, but still, even the documentary, they're going to sway it to push whatever narrative, that way that is, whatever one they want to push. That's the point of a documentary, is you can push it to support your narrative or your thought process. So even then you're not getting 100%, but movies, definitely not. People got to understand these things are fabricated, for the viewer audience and, likability and how much they think is going to make money. We had a conversation about the movie White Boy Rick with one of our last guests, Johnny Curry. And he was just like, a lot of it was fabricated. And there's actually, a paid historian. His name's Scott Bernstein. He was a paid like, advisor on the movie. And he had to tell him a couple of times, like, look, it didn't happen like this. It happened like this. And they released him. They released him from the movie because he wasn't fitting the narrative. He was going off, this is how it really happened versus what you're trying to put on screen. And eventually they just cut him loose.
Mm. Yeah, you think how bad the cartels are. Okay, we hit base. These are bad people. And in fact, the U.S. State Department pretty much suggests people not to go to Mexico. The great spots like Cancun and Tulum, even they're having shootings. So yeah. I wouldn't be going to Mexico until things change. It's one of those things. It's just not safe for an average person. You get kidnapped. It's just these guys are targeting people. They don't just make money on drugs. They make a lot of money on extortion, kidnapping, murders. I mean, these guys really make a lot of money in a lot of different things. They even stealing fuel, petrol from the pipelines. These guys do everything, man. These guys
right now, gas would be a good thing to steal because
it is
mercy.
These guys are making freaking money. Hopefully now with OPEC, they decide to release some more so we can, not rely on. And that's a great segue. Yeah, the cartels are bad, and I also talked a little bit politics. I also write fiction, nonfiction, and I also did some other travel books. But political, I have written the book on Putin's tyranny,
right,
about a month earlier before the invasion, and had mentioned about his ambition was to make Russia a new USSR, but he wasn't a communist. USSR, he's a dictator, capitalist. I like the money and the control.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to increase my empire, the Russian Empire. And I feel bad for the Ukrainians. Yeah, but what he's doing to these poor people is probably worse than anything we ever seen the cartels do to their people. Because and the other time we just saw a mass burial of 1,300 people in a small little town in Ukraine because he decides to shell civilians.
Yeah, it's really brutal what's going on right now. And we were actually going to do a sit down interview with a young actress, and she just blatantly told me, she's like, I don't know if I would be the best guest right now. She's like, I'm from Ukraine, my family's over there, things are not good, I'm not in the good headspace to do an interview. And I was like,
No.
Look, I totally get that. Obviously, I'm sorry for what's going on, and I'm praying everything works out well for your families, but they're showing a lot of heart over there, the Ukrainians. I mean, you got the Klitschko brothers, I think, was saying they were going to go and put on guns and go out there. A lot of athletes are saying they're going to go fight. I mean, it's showing the unity of those guys for sure, but I don't know how they win this. I really don't. If it keeps going, I don't know how they come out on top.
Yeah, we the only way they could really win, I think, if it escalates and it ends up becoming possibly World War III,
right?
Which is what a lot of people think is going to happen. Because how much can we watch? More responsibility watching these poor people get shelled by this monster.
Yeah,
because of his ambition.
And then, like you said, when we step in, then that's the world. Other parts of the world coming in. Like you said, World War III. It's very possible that it comes to that.
I don't think, and I'm going to put this out there, I don't think he stops.
I don't know if he does either. I agree.
I think he wants to go to Poland, and he's going to keep on going. And we already said we will defend our NATO allies.
Yeah. Do you think Biden's got what it takes to, go up against him?
I hope he talks. I hope he's for the country's sake that he does. Obviously, he's big on sanctions, but I'm hoping that when it's time, I know we're supplying a lot of Stinger missiles and other hardware to the Ukrainians. We're trying to help them. I think we just passed in Congress a $6 billion budget to help the Ukrainians in every different way we can. But you can't spend the money if you're not going to be around, right?
Right.
I admire Zelensky, President Zelensky, what he's doing, being a Jewish president, and Putin is calling him a Nazi. I mean, that's unbelievable. I think Putin is a Nazi. He's a nationalist. He's the one. He's not even a communist. He never was a communist. He's a nationalist, and he's a fascist. Pretty much, he's a nationalist fascist. That's all you can say about him.
Yeah, and I think me and you had talked about in the past, there was things that a lot of times if anyone ever spoke out against him, or reporters that he came out and tried to report against them, they got taken out.
Yes, and I touch about that in my short reads, especially with Putin. And I didn't really realize, and I heard stories here and there, but if you're a reporter, a journalist, and you're critical of him, you better keep away from open windows, because it was shocking how many of them slipped and fell out the windows. And it's like one after another, after another, after another. I was like, what?
Clumsy people over there. I guess.
Clumsy people, yeah, yeah. And the Russian authorities tell these stories with straight faces. One story was the guy was moving his bathtub. He slipped, and by the way, the window was open. Oh, there he goes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And those are journalists. And then dissidents, don't be drinking tea in Russia. Because
Yeah,
if you
the
drink tea in
spike.
Russia,
Yeah,
you're going to get poisoned.
that was the
Drinking the
show.
hot tea.
That was what I had read. Somebody that he had a meeting with or something like that. They basically spiked the tea and it poisoned him and killed him.
Yeah, and that's if you get killed. If not, you're suffering massive health issues. Major dissidents. I mean, the one you probably heard, the one who blew the whistle on his palace, that $1 billion palace that he has out there, which is insane. Probably the biggest bribe from the oligarchs in world history, as they call it. He got poisoned. He was on a plane. They had to make an emergency stop in, I think, in Germany, and they didn't want him getting his treatment. Putin did not want him getting treated, and then when he comes back, he puts him in jail.
He's in jail right now.
Unbelievable. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. No, man. It's once I saw that, I already knew. And what he did to Crimea, because he invaded in 2014, he took a big chunk of the Ukraine already. So I already knew this guy who was about, and a lot of people just didn't. You don't give credit to is Mitt Romney. Go check this out. Have your listeners check this out. The debate between him and Obama in 2012, where they're talking about what's the biggest threat. The question, what's the biggest threat to the United States? Mitt Romney said, Putin, Russia. And Obama said, no, dude, that's behind us. That's not going to be a threat to us. And Romney's been on TV a lot talking about that debate and his answers and what Putin is. And he now goes into history as a war criminal.
Yeah.
Now we're hoping that he gets indicted. The question is, what happens next? I'm an expert, I'm a legal expert, but what I read and what I hear is that if he does get indicted as a war criminal in The Hague, then the sanctions stay on him and on the country. So this reality stays forever until he's removed. The ruble is nothing. The markets collapse. So hopefully civil war or somebody in the Kremlin does him right and does him like he did others. And maybe he'll have some hot tea or something.
That's what I'm thinking. This is either going to get to the point to where, like you said, we have to step in and it becomes World War III, which I hope doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Or somebody over there, collective heads get together and they kind of do their own hit, so to speak, and just kind of, agree that, hey, maybe we'll be better off if we just take this guy out.
That's what I think everybody's hoping, that somebody within the Kremlin or says, you know what, enough of this guy. But they say he may be scared of that. And I think now he knows with this folly of this invasion, that he's in a quagmire with the Ukrainians, man. They're fighting all the way. This is not going to be a walk in the park. This is going to be months. And the Russian count is getting pretty high.
Yeah.
It's getting pretty high.
Yeah. And at some point, even them, I mean, even though they're huge, they've even got to look at me like, all right, well, how many more guys are we going to lose? And that's in those times like that, when you're in situations like what he's in, that's when things like that are an all-time high, where the chances of you getting taken out for somebody that can come in and, try to smooth this thing out are more and more prevalent and prone to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I was hearing is that they've lost already, close to 10,000 in a little over 3 weeks. And we didn't lose that many in Afghanistan in 20 years.
Right.
So their body count is going to be enormous. So, and they don't want to fight. Like a lot of the soldiers taking their young kids. First, they were told there's a training exercise. And secondly, they would say, we don't want to fight. They consider them their brothers. So why are we here? So the morale is bad. They don't want to be doing this. This is Putin's ambition. No one else other than one man, similar to Hitler.
Yeah.
Hitler's ambition.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm viewing Putin as right now, is, a modern day Hitler, just the way his views and visions are. And now what he's doing with this right here is crazy, and it's very sad. And, definitely all of our prayers here at Crime and Entertainment is going over to everybody on the Ukraine. And, you guys are fighting like hell. Like I said, I mean, I wish them all the best. The situation doesn't look great for them right now. Hopefully things can turn around, but I don't know how legitimately they win this war, at least not fighting it the way it is now. Someone will have to step in, somebody major, like I said, probably the U.S. And then we all know where that can lead and that can go to. And that's probably not a good outcome for anybody, I don't think.
Did you read any of Tom Clancy's novels back in the 80s and 90s? Red Storm Rising or Cardinal in the Kremlin?
No,
He predicted this scenario in his book, Red Storm Rising. He said that then the Soviet Union, obviously, a little different, but kind of same,
right.
issued a false flag, like they did about Ukrainian genocide, that it wasn't happening. We got to come in and protect the people. No. They created a situation where they had to invade, because then they owned Eastern Germany, where they had to invade Western Germany under a false flag operation to try and take over. And that World War III, according to the novel, this is a novel, will be started by the Russians, by the Soviet Union, which is what we're seeing play out right here under a false pretense of why they went in there.
Yeah.
So this is a scenario that's playing out. The book has a happy ending. At the end, they do take out the guy. They remove him, the head of at the time of the Soviet Union. I don't know if that's going to happen here, because unfortunately, the Russians do have nuclear subs, and they get pretty close to us also.
Yeah, and that's what we have to be, aware of, because when you start bringing out the term nuclear war, and that's when, everybody should be scared, no matter what, what political side you're on, what race you're on, what gender, it doesn't matter. When you start hearing that word nuclear, that's when your ass needs to start paying attention, because things can get really out of hand really, really quick.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm in Northern Virginia, but I'm a ways different from DC. But people are saying, well, what's the blast radius if it goes next to the Capitol? How do we, and then the radiation fallout, how long should be inside? So people are looking into what should you do in a nuclear attack.
Oh, yeah.
And how to survive.
Man, I'll tell you a show that I used to watch. Did you ever watch 24 when it was on air?
Yeah, a little bit.
I didn't watch it like when it first come on. Matter of fact, I think it was probably all the way in season 6 by the time I ever watched it. And I'm a big football fan, and they would always show it, especially on Fox, because it was a Fox show. I would see these things on there, and I'm like, they make these trailers look like movie trailers. I was like, something maybe with this show. So I think it was like a Black Friday, deal where they put box sets on sale for like $20. And I went and bought the first box set. So the premise, and for people that don't know, is the show is called 24. So it's 24 episodes a season, but the entire season is basically one day. It starts out, your first episode is,
that's right,
7 a.m. to 8 a.m. So that's one episode, and it's 24. So even though it's spread out for a whole season, technically it all happens in one day. But there's so many things going on with nuclear war and things about to happen. And sometimes they save it, sometimes they don't, sometimes it goes off. But it's just like, you wonder if we're really that close to a destruction behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know. Because I know there's got to be a lot of stuff going on out there, a lot of threats that people are dealing with that we don't know about. But it definitely makes you think, like you said, if that happened, how far, does that radius come to you where you could be affected by a nuclear war? Because you got to think DC's probably going to want to be the first places to hit.
Yeah, I would say major cities, DC, New York, East Coast, I would imagine maybe easier than the West Coast.
Yeah.
Will the Chinese help them?
Yeah.
Will this be similar to World War II? With the German and Japanese forces to attack us, like in Pearl Harbor? Will they do the same with Taiwan? Are the communist Chinese looking now and say, hey, maybe it's a time for us to move in Taiwan and really test this administration? Hey, they're taking the Ukraine. They wanted that. We want Taiwan back. It's been 7 years of democracy, but they've been thumbing the nose at us. We want to take it back. And he's a piece of work. That guy's committing genocide there with ethnic Muslims in Northwest China now for years. In Hong Kong, he's pretty much destroyed freedom in Hong Kong. You can't open your mouth or anything.
And see, that's the thing, is what Putin's doing now. Like you just said, China's watching. They're seeing how we're going to react. A lot of people are watching to see how we're going to react and what we're going to do. And that's what just has me worried with Joe Biden, is I just don't know if he's got the mental capacity. I know he's got people around him. I mean, he's got people, advisors and things like that. But ultimately, a lot of it does hinge on him. And it just makes me nervous. It really makes me nervous. And people can say what they want to about Trump. Yeah, he was brash, but all that. But he did at least get to the point where he was sitting down talking with, Korean Kim Jong-un. I mean, he made that at least that step.
Sure.
So I think as crazy as he was, I do think he was respected in that sense. I don't know if Biden is as respected by these other people. And part of that is, evident.
Maybe,
What's going on
they
right
don't
now.
think that but they got to taste him a little bit when he was VP with Obama.
Right.
So they know what they're dealing with here. Normally and historically, sometimes Democrats are viewed a little softer with international relations.
Right.
And the Republicans are always a little tougher, a little more hawkish, right?
Yep.
They go in there. I do give Trump credit. I mean, I don't think Biden would have made this decision. Maybe I'm wrong. When he killed the Iranian general out there when they're attacking our embassy in Iraq,
yeah,
right? That's a courageous call.
Yeah,
that stunned the world. Took out the number 2 guy in Iran.
And
number 2 guy gone.
And to those kind of things, and it's hard to correlate, our president of the United States by like, how you would have to be in prison. But I mean, it's kind of like in prison, when you go in, people are looking at what you're going to do, how you're going to react. So if you make a move like that, that commands respect. That commands, hey, listen, this ain't a guy, that we can just fuck around with all kind of way. So him doing that, like you said, it was a brave call, but I think it also was like, all right, maybe this guy means business. However, if he'd, tried to, use kid gloves around the situation, that could have went the other way drastically.
It did. But look how Iranians were afraid now. This is going to come to regime change. And it was like, okay, we're going to stop bothering you guys in Iraq. We're not going to start provoking problems. And things have changed again. So it caught the world's attention. It's like, hey, I think the reputation Trump had was he's a little out there. You're not sure what he's going to do.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Excuse me. So I think Biden, when you look at him, a lot of people think, oh, he's a little softer. He's not going to do it. All right, we're going hard with the sanctions. We'll see how this goes. But and I know a lot of Americans are, because Zelensky's opened up his army for people from Europe and America to help him.
Yeah.
And everything I'm reading and looking at, there's Americans flying out there to help out.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't have the military, but we have guys who are former military or anybody, former law, anybody that can handle a weapon. But it's hard to go out there and leave your family behind, especially where your own country doesn't want to send troops in there, right?
Right. And it's like you said, you're going in there already way outnumbered, way outmanned, way outgunned. It's not, I guess, the most promising of situations to put yourself into, for sure.
There's many ways. I mean, obviously, I wrote my book, Putin's Tyranny, and I do promote a lot on.
And when did you write that? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
When did you write that? What time? When did you write it?
Oh, I wrote that a month prior to the invasion.
Wow.
And it wasn't, and the book was more about the tyranny in Russia, but I said he will expand. He will expand. The question of what Russians will do, that's my final thought for people, is are they going to accept Putin and his tyranny, or are they going to fight for freedom? What are they going to do now? The ball's in their court.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I'm me, like the rest of the world, I'm sure we're waiting kind of on edge. I mean, it's almost like must-see TV to what's going to happen, what's going to break this, what's going to step up to the next level, and what's going to be the next turn of events in this, because I don't think it's over. I think we got a while before this is straightened out. I don't think it's be anything that's going to be straightened out in a matter of week or months. I think it's going to drag. And, hopefully there's somewhat of a peaceful outcome as best there can, but I'll be honest with you, my personal opinion, I think it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better.
Oh, I think so. I think the body count is going to be enormous on both sides.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's stopping. If he takes Ukraine, it's going to be World War III. He goes into Poland. He goes into Romania. He keeps on. He definitely wants a Baltic. I mean, he has Belarus because he has an agreement with that other dictator there. And then he has part of Georgia. So he's going to keep on going in the Baltics. He wants what USSR used to be, controlling this whole region.
And I mean, to his point, looking at it from his side, he's going to go and he's going to take as much as they're going to allow.
Yes.
Until somebody steps up and stops him, or, enough people band together to at least put up the fight to where he second guesses, his decisions. He's going to keep going. It's just like, that's anything in life. People are going to take what they can take from you until you stand up and, don't let them do it no more. Yeah.
You got to stand up to a bully, and he's a bully right now.
Yeah.
And you got to stand up to this bully. And he's a bully to everybody. And he doesn't care if you're a journalist in this country, crush you. Oh, you criticize me in Chechnya? Look what he did to Chechens. I mean, I understand their actions were annoying, but he leveled a capital.
Yeah.
He leveled that capital, destroyed, they say, over 250,000, maybe more. And he put another strongman in there who's another tyrant in Chechnya. So, I mean, the guy is just brutal, brutal. He's a cold-blooded killer. You can't really, he's a war criminal. There's no way around it. The question is, now he gets indicted, what comes next?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the question on everybody's mind. What comes next? You know, we've covered a lot here, and we're only really kind of scratching the surface because we haven't really dove in, you know, in depth to a lot of these, but we've covered a lot of them briefly. And that was kind of what I wanted to do on this first episode, is kind of give everybody a brief history of, you know, what you did and then how you become, you know, in the situation to write all these things. Because like you said, they're quick reads for people that don't want to, you know, devote a whole lot of time, but also it's enough good and valuable information to where if that's the kind of thing you say, okay, well, I want to go further, then you'll kind of have your areas of knowing what to look for and what to go into, and kind of have a deeper dive into things. When did you, what was the first book that you wrote when you got, I'm assuming you started writing after you retired?
Yeah, I mean, during the pandemic, our acting director at the time challenged us to do something different. I mean, obviously you're home a lot. It was tough times. People were dying. We had no vaccine. We really didn't know what was going on. That was in March 2020. So I decided to start, you know, dabbling at my autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
I started writing here and there a little bit. I'm working, I'm busy and everything else. I got some of it done, but not until after I retired in June of last year that I really started diving deeper into that. But it took me a lot longer to write it. I didn't publish that until January of this year. So wow. I started with politics, and my first one was about China, the evil empire, because I really didn't feel like they should be hosting the Winter Games. In fact, I was saying they shouldn't have it. I mean, that's probably one of the worst decisions the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, has made. I mean, they made some really bad ones. I mean, 36 games, Nazi Germany. They should never have hosted that game either. The Soviet Union in 1980, which we boycotted, which was brutally killing people in Afghanistan. Yeah. And then we're looking at here, and these guys are committing genocide and violating people's rights, atrocious, not only in Taiwan or Tibet or Hong Kong, but all over. You can't say anything negative about the CCP, Communist Chinese Party. You say anything negative, and plus seeing all those poor doctors who are doing the right things, getting killed and disappearing because they're bringing out the attention of the virus, you know, the COVID-19, the Wuhan virus. It's just disgusting. And so I felt compelled, and that was in October of last year, to start writing. I started publishing in December. So I have over almost 22, going to be 23 now with this book I'm working on, international trafficking, firearms trafficking, which I'm working on, which is really going to be in depth, which is going to be nice, especially with my expertise on that. So not bad. I think in a few months, I've really taken to it. And I was fortunate enough that I'll come on your show here and talk about it.
Absolutely. And we're glad you come on our show. You know, we spoke earlier, Jay Dobbins, who was also an ATF agent. I had heard his story before, I think on Gangland also, and some Vice Network stuff. And he's been on a few different things with his stories. I had heard, you know, how he got into it, the methods that he used to get inside the club, you know, the kind of the false murder, if you will, of the Mongol that got him in there. Then I obviously heard, you know, they pulled the plug on Operation, I think it was Black Biscuit.
Black Biscuit, yeah.
So what I never did hear was kind of how the fallout went after that. I knew that they didn't get quite as many, I guess, lengthy indictments as they wanted. A lot of that was because things that apparently Jay had done throughout the course of the, you know, the undercover operation. But how it was handled after it was done was really shocking. Those are things that I really didn't know about his information becoming private. And, you know, the Hells Angels was able to get a location on him and burn his house down. And, you know, he says he went to the ATF and was like, look, you know, I told you they were coming after me. They burnt my house down. And so they look into it. He's thinking he's about to get protective custody. And the next thing you know, they're investigating him for setting a fire to his own house.
I heard about that. I did hear about that. Yes. And I did read his book years ago, No Angel, when it came out. And I also read Billy Queen's book too. Under an Alone.
No Angel there.
Yep.
Yeah, Billy's was good. Now Billy doesn't do quite as many interviews. I've actually tried to reach out to some people to see if I could maybe get him to come on the show. He's not as camera friendly, I guess you could say, as Jay is. Jay's
Yeah.
done
Well,
a many.
I'm trying to become camera friendly, as you can tell.
Yeah. Well, when we spoke, and because of your name, like I say, your name is very, different than normal. I almost thought it was like a bot because I get so many robots like message me through, I mean, like 50 a day, like asking me, have I got the new $1,200 through Cash App or some kind of shit. And when I seen that name, but then you put a message with it and you talked about the show and you was like, check out some of my work. Well, I'm always skeptical about clicking on links too in Messenger because those kind of things can be viruses. So I Googled the name and then it come up with the books. And I was like, okay, well, this might be legit. And then I contacted you and we got to talking. And I can usually tell because I like to talk to people before we do interviews and do we have them on the show. And I can tell by that first conversation if it'll be a good interview or not. And I think the first time we talked, it went for like an hour and a half. The first time we ever spoke. So, and we had a lot of the same, interests. We knew a lot of the same stuff. A lot of the cases that I brought up, you were familiar with, and vice versa. So I knew that you were going to be, a great guest on the show. And I definitely love to have you back on here. It's about time for us to wrap this one up. Maybe next time we can go kind of more in depth on some of the cases that maybe meant more to you than others, or, more dangerous.
Yeah, I would like that.
One stick out for sure. Tell everyone if they wanted to go find your books, is there strictly Amazon? What ways are there to go to your product?
I went exclusively with Amazon.
Okay.
And I went for this reason. I do everything from A to Z. I write it, I publish it, I edit it, I market myself. I do everything. So if you do that, Amazon, if you go exclusively to Amazon, they let you promote the book in there and they help rank my book and everything else. So, and I read somewhere it was like 92% of people who buy books online buy it on Amazon.
Yeah.
Most people buy their books on Amazon. So I said, it makes sense to go there and give me all this. So I did that. So if you go to Amazon, you type in my name, Ignacio J. Esteban, then you'll see all my different books out there. If you want to get a feel for who I am, I think you'll like ATF Undercover. ATF Undercover, you get a feel for who I am, my cases, the kind of person I am. And then if you want, you can start looking more at the cartels and organized crime. And then you can see more politics, especially with Putin and the Chinese. And then if you're not about that, I also wrote, like I said, fiction and nonfiction. I also got travel books in there for my travels. So if you like, look at beautiful pictures, scenic pictures of South Dakota, Niagara Falls, or Chicago, or I've been to so many different places, beautiful pictures. Or also, I even wrote some sports fiction.
Yeah,
winning Wimbledon.
And that's kind of what piqued my interest there when I went and I started looking at all different things. So I'm like, all right, 1% gangs, all right, mafia gangs and prison gangs, and then it was scenic pictures, and I'm just like, wait a minute, like, did it kick me to another guy? Am I on another authors? It's the same person, and I had to go back and look, and I was like, wow, this guy's covering a lot of bases here with this.
And kids books too. If you look, I wrote some books with my 10-year-old daughter, and she gives me some ideas, and we collaborate together, which is a great bonding way. And where else can you now with Kindle, Amazon? I'm not trying to plug them, but I'll be honest with you, I would never have been able to do this any other way, because just to get one book published with a traditional publisher takes forever.
Yeah,
I can do everything myself now, and I check and I'm careful. And you may find a typo here and there like anybody else, even though I'm cleaning stuff up. But I try to be very careful with the product I'm giving you. And if you read my stuff, I researched it, I looked into it. But if you don't like politics, there's other things you can look at too.
And a lot of things are like very reasonably priced on there. Some of these books are, what's your price range? Is it a couple bucks?
Every book's under $10, and most of them are $2.99. And if you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, they're free. So if you're part of the Kindle Club, you read them for free. And I want people to read it. And when I promote the books, within a certain period, I promoted ATF Undercover, and I had over 100 downloads over a weekend.
Wow.
So I think in a few months, I'll look at the numbers. I have had already close to 1,000 downloads already on my books.
Well, I hope we get you a few more, man, coming on this show, because I told you in the beginning, I wanted to get a chance to read some of your books before we did this, but I've been so busy. But I'm like, at the same time, I kind of want to get to know you as the same time as our listeners, and that's kind of what I've done. So you've your job is working on me, even though I'm kind of doing this interview now. I'm, curious to what some of these books are about. And like you said, it's the way you're describing it is perfect for people that don't have a ton of time, because you sit down and you see this massive book. You're like, man, I don't have the time to dive into it. Just the size of the book can turn you away from it. So you do it right. You give them an easy read. And then they say, okay, well, if I want to learn more about it, then I'll dive into it. Or if I'm good with this, I'll move on to the next one. I think that's the way it is. Because like people say, I'm into organized crime. There's so many factions of organized crime. Like you said, there's the New York, there's Chicago, there's Philly, there's Montreal. I mean, it's all, all the way to Italy if you want to go to it. There's so many different ways and factions and rabbit holes you can go down with the five families, the outfit. I mean, it's just, it goes on for days. You can go down a rabbit hole for months chasing, La Cosa Nostra. And I've always been a big reader and fascinated by that lifestyle. And, really one percenters too, anybody, because I think what it is, and I've had this conversation, those people that live outside the means and the of the law, I don't want to say idolize, but I think people kind of live vicariously through that. Most people aren't gonna do that, but they kind of like to see other people do it and read about other people doing it. A lot like WWE. I was a huge wrestling fan growing up, and when Stone Cold was at his peak, he was coming out drinking beer and pouring it on the boss and beating him and stunning him. Who hasn't at some point? I hope my boss isn't watching this particular show, because I'm not talking about my current one. I've got a few in the past I want to do this to, but who wouldn't want to knock the hell out of their boss every once in a while? I mean, so you live through that. You kind of live through that person vicariously, if you will, that they're able to do those things and get away with it, because you can't go do it because you'll get fired if you do it, or if I do it, So I think that's the fascination, with a lot of these mob guys and a lot of these one percenters. These people, they're so enthralled in that they're going to be there to watch them, because that's why shows like The Sopranos done so well. Shows like Sons of Anarchy done so well. Shows like The Wire, with the drug dealing in Baltimore, people that are into that done so well, because people were just drawn to those kind of people that lived outside the law, the outlaws, basically.
Well, like we talked about, Ray Donovan.
Yeah.
He's a cleaner for groups and people.
Yeah, he was clean up any mess you wanted. I mean, if people don't know, it's a Showtime show with Liev Schreiber, Ray Donovan, excellent show, great cast. John Voight is amazing in there.
Yes.
I mean, he just plays that scummy father role to a damn T in that show. I swear.
He does.
I mean, and every time you want to hate him and wish him dead, he does something where you're kind of like, all right, well, he can hang around for a few more episodes. I mean, that's, to me, is the mark of a good actor, when you can go from loving to hating somebody in a matter of a season or a few episodes. It's really, really compelling of how people can pull that off.
I agree. No, I agree. I enjoy those shows. And there was another one that came out, and I watched Showtime more than HBO. I know we talked about Sopranos, but I didn't really grow up watching HBO much. I grew up watching Showtime, and it was just a one season. Cranton, he plays that judge where his son gets jammed up badly, and he's dealing with bad people, and he has to make decisions to save his son.
Is that Bryan Cranston?
Yes.
Yeah. I seen him. Don't his son like kill somebody or hit somebody on a car or something like that?
And hit and run. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. See, I watched like the first episode of that. I think like maybe when it first dropped.
And that's the son of the mob boss in New Orleans. He's the son of the mob boss in New Orleans.
In the show or in real life?
In the show. He kills the son of the mob boss in New Orleans. And the thing gets out of control.
Holy cow. Yeah, see, I don't know, for whatever reason, I liked that first episode because I remember him coming back and just how powerful Bryan Cranston was as an actor. Yeah, I need to go back and give that a look, man. A lot of people said good things about Ozark too. Ozark's one I haven't tackled yet. Have you watched Ozark?
Is that on Showtime?
I think it's straight Netflix. It's a strictly Netflix show. They're on like the 6th season. A lot of people rave about Ozark, man.
Have you watched Narco?
I have. I watched the first 2.
Okay. That's a Netflix too, right?
Yep, that's a Netflix exclusive.
What do you think of Narco?
Oh, I liked it. I loved it. Yeah, first season was really good. First season was, always kind of, first season's always usually the best. Sometimes you can up them as you keep going.
I have never seen it. Is it take place in Mexico or in the U.S.?
That was in Mexico. That was the first season is more focused around Pablo.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, some big names
Gotcha.
actors were Louis Guzman was in there for a little while. I think he got killed off. It's been a while since I've seen that because that's been quite a long time ago since that was on there.
Gotcha.
After two, I don't know if I stayed up to par with it. I know it kept having like some spinoffs and some continuations of it, but I never followed that too hard. I was a big, like I said, Sons of Anarchy's fan, Sopranos fan.
Yeah.
Sons of Anarchy had a guy we talked about kind of character, plot twist and things like that. They got Ron Perlman, who was in there. I don't know if he's played Hellboy and he's been in a ton of stuff. Really tall guy, really imposing looking individual. He goes through a character arc in there where you hate him. He kills up a bunch of people. He beats up his wife, kills off some main characters of the show. And then he's about to get outed, or he does get outed of the club for things that he's done. And then right before he's about to die, you're almost feeling sorry for him because of how he's lost everything. He's lost the club. He's lost, the patch. He's lost everything that he worked for. And you're damn near feeling sorry for the guy that's just killed all these people. And that takes a special kind of talent as an actor to do that. Not everybody can pull that off.
No, I think, like we said, John Voight he's excellent doing that too.
Yeah.
He does the same thing. He has that bad relationship with Ray.
Yeah.
But yet he managed to get himself back into the family every time.
That's good.
If you, if you have a chance to see the final season, you should see the final season.
That's the only one that I've seen every one of them except for the very last one. And that's the one I need to watch. Now I think they're doing a movie.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I heard that they're doing a movie. So I don't know. I need to look into that too. I watched the final season before I watched the movie, because I think we talked the last one that I watched where they were in, was it New York, when he dove off the bridge? I think that was right after his wife died. He dives off the bridge, and then I think it's Dominic Lombardozzi, the actor, pulls him out and kind of gets him back. That was the last season that I seen.
Yeah, it's another season after that, and I'm not going to rule for the viewers who haven't seen it, but I think they want to do another season, and for some reason, Showtime and CBS did not continue. But they did 8 seasons though.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah,
you can't complain with that.
Your average run of a good popular show nowadays is about 6 to 7 seasons, somewhere along in there, because you start to run out of a good story. You start to kind of, if the show's good, actors want to be paid more. Yeah. So that becomes an issue. If you got a lot of, characters in a show, if it's not just centered around a few people, you got to pay more. So the shows can get costly that way. And then, like I say, you just run out of compelling story, and you don't want to water down what's already been, a great series. I know a lot of people are high on, what's the Western right now that everybody, Yellowstone. I don't know if you watched that. Yeah. I'm not too big on anything Old West, or I know it's not Old West, but like Western and horses. Everybody says it's like the Sopranos or the Sons of Anarchy on horses. I don't know. I'm just not too big on stuff like that, but I'm probably going to give it a look when I get some time to burn through. They say if you get through like the first 3 or 4 episodes, you're hooked. So I gotta. Yeah.
Well, the one with the judge, like I told you, doing with the New Orleans Mafia, one season, I think you had like 8, 9, or maybe 10 episodes. I kind of binged through it, so I enjoyed it over a weekend. It's good. You enjoy it over a weekend. It's well acted, and twists and turns, and it's like, this is possible. It could have happened.
Yeah, I mean, real life mob boss down there was a guy by the name of Carlos Marcello, and he's got a crazy, interesting story. If people don't know about him, I think at some point I kind of want to get into doing kind of like a bio on some of these top mob guys that people hadn't heard of. But I mean, he was tied in with the things of Jimmy Hoffa, disappearance, or not disappearance, but disappearance of Hoffa, the murder of JFK. I mean, all sorts of things that Carlos Marcello had his hands in. And he was actually, I don't think he was I don't want to tell the story wrong, so I like to be able to, make sure it's fact before I put it out there. But it was something along the lines of they dropped him off like in a jungle somewhere, and he wound up making his way back, like coming through the damn jungle, coming back here. It was some crazy story of how that happened. I heard it and I was just like, wow, that's crazy. Because maybe he wasn't a full citizenship or something like that. So they took him and dropped him off where they were assuming he was going to be killed, either held captive or killed. And he managed to make it all the way back to the United States. So, and that's another one people don't realize, the mob was out there in Louisiana for a long time.
Yeah.
So the mob's everywhere. The bikers are everywhere. The cartels are, they're starting to creep in a little bit too everywhere and get into the United States. So there's a lot of bad stuff out there that people need to be aware of.
Street gangs everywhere.
Yeah. I mean,
street gangs are brutal too.
it's dangerous. It's dangerous times. And, you know, if anybody wants to read about this, please.
I think that's why we all believe in our Second Amendment rights, and people need to protect themselves.
Absolutely.
If you got home invaders coming in your home, you can't expect the police to come and save you.
Boy, you said a mouthful right there, buddy. You can. That's the gospel truth. The gospel truth.
You got to protect yourself and your family. And this is coming from law enforcement because it takes time to respond. You got to be ready. You got to be trained, but be trained. Don't be, because when the guys come with guns at you, you never fired a weapon before. You have one in your closet. What good are you gonna do?
Yeah. I mean, take the CWP classes. There's a lot of them out there now. Take the CWP classes. They kind of run you through, you know, some of the basics, and you have to do some firearms training. You have to hit so many targets and stuff like that. So it gives you a feel for the weapon. My advice is, if you have a weapon that's going to be your weapon of choice, take that weapon to the CWP class. Get familiar with that particular weapon and how it works.
I mean, I'm fortunate. I've been shooting for over 30 years, and I'm well trained in practice. And you know, ATF agents, we shoot every quarter, and we shoot a lot. And, you know, the nickname for ATF was all the fun. You know, but and people think, oh, ATF likes to take your guns and all that. It's a contrary.
Yeah.
Most agents I work with want law-abiding citizens to be well armed, protect themselves. It's the bad guys who shouldn't have any guns.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't want. And I did a lot of, and if they see that book, I hope they see that. And it's also a little bit of office politics. I talk about some of the ups and downs I had and how you overcome it. You know, we're talking about, you know, things about bad bosses. Yeah, I had my fair share.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I put that out there.
They're out there. They're in everywhere. It doesn't matter what kind of industry you're in. I'm in the steel industry. I'm a welder, and I've been in the, you know, steel game for quite a while. And I'm fortunate enough to have a good one now that I love going to work for.
That's good.
But that's been not always been the case in the past, or some I hated going to work for. You know, some I did want to, you know, slap the hell out of, like Stone Cold, and pour beer on it.
That's what I brought up.
But I mean, you know, that's, like I said, that's life. That's in anything, man. That's retail. It don't matter. Retail, whatever. You know, even in the drug games and organized crime, people are going to have those people that just, you know, they don't vibe with. They're just assholes, quite frankly. And that's, you know, it's out there. There's nothing you can do about it. But, you know, we got to keep on making a living. We got to keep on doing what we're doing what we want to do. And you seem to be really have found your niche here with these books.
Thank you.
I hope that we can drive some listeners your way, some downloads your way. And we definitely want to have you back on the show, man. And maybe, you know, pick one of them and do a little bit more in-depth look at it. And, you know, even if it's your own autobiography, and get a lot of story. I'm sure we could fill up a couple shows with some of the stories that you got from ATF for sure.
Oh, for sure. And not just about cases also. You know, the office politics is sometimes it's stranger than fiction.
Yeah. Yeah, I can believe the behind the scenes, so to speak, there.
You know, that's one thing. And I was fortunate enough that I tell people, and I had great advice when I first started with customs, is I invested early. We had like a 401k, which you call a thrift savings plan, and I maxed it out from day one. And I put everything I can, like the matching funds. And I was fortunate enough when I retired, I had done well enough where I'm good.
Yeah.
I did really well. I'm good. And I got my pension, and I can do things with my family and do things. So I encourage people always to, if possible, invest early, start early, and don't try to go for the crypto quick buck.
Yeah.
Because back then when I was investing, it was the internet bubble in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us got bit our asses big time, and we lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
You have to go steady and long. You just go with the, you know, S&P 500, and just go and blue chip companies, American companies, and just invest. If you try the quick buck, you're gonna lose a lot.
Yeah, and because even if you get lucky and you hit that, I know some guys that, you know, did invest in Bitcoin when it was still around the, you know, a couple thousand, and when it got up to the, you know, the 50s and 60s, they sold that and were looking for that next Bitcoin, and they probably lost, you know, 75% of what they had to start with, you know, because they're looking for that next one, you know. And
I know
they're out there. Dogecoin's going to come behind it, and then SHIB, you know, came behind it. They had crazy games. But when it's almost like when the general public finds out about them, by that time it's kind of too late. You really have to be on your game and into this to know how to jump on it early to make those big profits. Otherwise, like you say, you're just going to lose money.
So that's why I said, people go steady, long term, and cost average. Don't even look at it. The advice they gave me, and I'll give a little financial advice. So we talked a little bit of everything. And I've done really well for myself. I don't want to, is just invest and it's going to have good days and bad days, but it's going to be like this, and it's going to just keep on climbing. You don't have to go down, but just keep on buying. When it goes down, you're buying on sale.
Yeah.
And when it goes back up, you're doing well again. So I tell people, don't panic and just go out there. And after 20, 25 years, you have a couple $1 million in your pocket.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. Well, folks, we hope you guys and gals have enjoyed that interview. I know I sure did. We're going to put links to some of these books in our show notes here on the YouTube. We will have this episode uploaded to YouTube. It will also be available on all the audio platforms that you have out there. If you're a Spotify member, we're on there. If you prefer Apple Podcasts, we're on there. And one app that I want to throw out to people is an app called the Stitcher app, because yes, Spotify and Apple, you know, a lot of those are subscription based. There are free versions. Stitcher is a podcast app that you do not need a subscription for, and you can find our podcasts on there absolutely free and go back from the very first episode and catch all the way up. Now, there are some premium ones on there that you can pay for, but ours is not one of them that you have to pay for. Crime and Entertainment is free, so you can go find us on there and binge everything from first episode where we done a Boys on the Tracks case, a crazy murder cover up that involved corruption with cops, and you know, all the way up to who would become president at one time, Bill Clinton, who then was the governor of Arkansas, and that was tied in with medical examiners and drug dealers, and I mean, just a crazy tale. So you can catch up everything from there. That's including this episode right here. A lot of people don't know about that, so I try to push that, you know, towards people that don't have the subscriptions, that's leery of, you know, signing up and, you know, getting another bill up under their belt. That one is absolutely free, and a lot of other good stuff on there as well. So not just, you know, our show, a ton of other good stuff. I can't tell you, Iggy, how glad you got on the show, man. We've been trying to put this together for about a week with my crazy schedule, but I'm glad we could get it on there. I think we knocked it out the park, and I definitely think we can sit back down here in the future and knock out a few more if you're so.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you, Hollywood Wade. Appreciate it, man. I enjoyed it myself. I look forward to talking to you and your audience some more in the future.
Absolutely. Well, folks, I am Hollywood Wade. That was my new pal, Iggy. And unfortunately, we are out of time. Tune in next week for an all new episode of Crime and Entertainment. Iggy, thank you, my friend.
Peace out.